does France rate South Africa? Again, high scoring attribute is from a physical, environmental perspective. The emotional connection there is slightly better than Canada at 51. Lowest scoring attribute is technologically advanced, and that's the only one in the 30s. So perceptions are a bit better than they were in the previous slide. How does Germany rate South Africa? They think that it's a beautiful country, that's for sure, with a score of 75. The interesting thing is that the emotional score is still low at 45. Technological advancement is also very low at 34 points. Italy, how does Italy rate us? They also think we're a reasonably okay country as far as beauty is concerned at 66, and the emotional connection is weak, but at least it's in the 50s. How does Japan rate us? Well, they don't think too highly of us, with an emotional score of 31, and most of the scores are in the 20s. What about Russia? Their score is 44. They don't think we're very inventive. The majority of those scores are in the 30s. What about the UK? How do the Brits rate us? Well, they give us an emotional score of 45. But they do think that we're beautiful. The country is beautiful. What about the US? Not as optimistic as the UK, but a terrible emotional score of 39. This is the country ranking of all 34 countries based on each of the individual attributes. And for the statement that was presented to identify how respondents, what the respondents feel about the physical beauty of the country, Canada, Australia, and Switzerland were the top performers there, whereas Russia, Ukraine, and South Korea were right at the bottom. South Africa was ranked 24th of all 34 countries, and our overall score there was 66. What about on whether we offer an appealing lifestyle? We're moving down the chain there. We're at 31 out of 34 countries with a score of 41 points. Russia is right down at the bottom again, followed by China and Ukraine. Australia, Canada, and Switzerland are the highest scoring countries there. Whether the country is an enjoyable country, South Africa is down there, ranked 31 once again. Italy, Australia, and Spain were ranked at the top. South Korea, Russia, and Ukraine at the bottom. About as a responsible participant in the global community. There we are ranked 28th, I think it was, with Thailand, Turkey, Mexico, Ukraine, China, and Russia behind us. Our overall score there was 37. It was run by an effective government. We were ranked 30th with a score of 35. Thailand, China, Ukraine, and Russia have lower scores than us. Offers a favorable environment for doing business. There we are ranked 31st with a score of 36.7. In terms of whether we've adopted progressive social and economic policies, we rank 28th. An important contributor to global culture, there we are ranked 31st with a score of 40 points. If we produce high quality products and services, we had a low score of 39 points. If we're inventive, we're in the bottom 3, the score of 35. These scores are low, but I think there's a lot that can be done to change those perceptions. Whether we're technologically advanced, we're in the bottom 3 again with a score of 34. And then just looking at the scores given to all 34 countries in terms of their ability to attract investment. There we were ranked 27th with a score of 36. With South Korea, Russia, and Ukraine being in the lower 30s. Which countries like themselves the most? Now this is based on the interviews that we did with respondents within their own countries. We asked them to rate their own countries. And it's fascinating for me that Australia is the number 1 there, right at the top, with the highest ranking of 91 points. Their emotional connection with their own country is incredibly strong. Where are we? We're second from the bottom with an average score of 64.22.
What's the difference between how countries rate themselves and how others rate them. So here you're seeing that the Chinese think of them way better than people outside about their own country. Pretty similar with Russia. You sort of have two countries that really rate themselves way better. Then you have this sort of wave between India and France, and then who rate themselves significantly better, and then you have at the end only Japan rates itself worse than it is rated from the outside. And we are sort of right in the middle there.
What I've done here is just captured the top 5 self-image attributes. So this is based on the respondents rating their own countries, not other respondents from other countries rating our country, for example. And Australia gave itself the highest score in terms of whether it believes it offers a favorable environment for doing business, 83 points. South Africa gave itself a score of 53. In terms of whether, what perceptions exist around whether the country is inventive, Australia gave itself the highest score again at 86. And South Africans rated South Africa at 57 points, nearly 58. Whether the country is technologically advanced, Finland gave itself the highest score at 82 points. South Africa just missing 50, 49.84. Whether the country produces high quality products and services, Austria gave itself the highest score of 88, South Africa 56. In terms of whether it's a beautiful country or not, South Africans are quite optimistic about that. They gave ourselves an excellent score of 80, whereas Australia gave themselves a score of 97. In terms of perceptions around whether the country is an enjoyable country, Australia gave itself a high score of 93, South Africa a score of 73. Whether the country offers an appealing lifestyle, Australia gave itself a score of 96 and we gave ourselves a score of 64. In terms of whether we're an important contributor to global culture, Canada rated itself highest at 85, South Africa at 61. In terms of whether the countries that are responsible participants in the global community, based on internal perceptions, Australia gave itself a score of 84 and South Africa a score of 48. Perceptions around whether the country is run by an effective government. Singapore gave itself the highest score of 78, South Africa a weak score of 40. Whether the country has adopted progressive social and economic policies, Australia at 81, South Africa at 46. External respondents in other countries rate South Africa versus our own general public.
And this is probably the most important slide for us to look at in looking at what should be done. Because, obviously if there is a discrepancy between what people think inside the country who have a first-hand experience, they might not have a good comparison to other countries. And people from outside the country rate South Africa very differently. Presumably there is some sort of an opportunity. So if for example, we are saying that this is an enjoyable country, but people outside don't think so, then we need to look at how do we interpret it? Does that mean that people outside don't know what you can do in South Africa? Is there maybe a communications gap? Or are there misperceptions inside the country? But that's where you need to come in as co-researchers and co-interpreters of what to do with this research and what can we learn from it.